U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in Jordan for what could be a last chance to revive the peace process, while the Arab League in Kuwait declares a total rejection of the Jewish state. In his first visit to EU headquarters, American President Barack Obama lashes out against Russian aggression in Crimea. And a Turkish court reverses the government-imposed ban on Twitter in the country 6 days after Prime Minister Erdogan ordered to wipe out the social network.
The News Today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening. The Israeli-Palestinian peace process is on the verge of collapse following harsh disputes between the sides over recognition of Israel as a Jewish state and the upcoming Palestinian prisoner release. In an apparent effort to save the talks, United States Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Amman today to meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev has the story.
Almost 9 months ago, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry had an ambitious dream to reach an Israeli-Palestinian comprehensive peace treaty in 9 months.
All of the final status issues, all of the core issues, and all other issues are all on the table for negotiation.
Kerry did coax the sides back into negotiations after a 3-year freeze, but despite months of meetings, his goal is more distant than ever. No agreement has been reached on any of the final status issues, and the divisions between the two sides are threatening to blow up the whole process. But Kerry isn't giving up, not just yet. In a last-ditch attempt to save talks, he cut short a Europe visit and departed on a surprise trip to Jordan to meet Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. A phone call or video conference with the Israeli Prime Minister will follow. Abbas is arriving in Amman after a successful Arab League summit in which his refusal to recognize Israel as a Jewish state was widely endorsed. As the original deadline of April 29th approaches, Kerry is focusing on 2 goals: keeping the 4th stage of Palestinian prisoner release on track and preventing the negotiations from falling apart, and hopefully even to extend them. Israel has already released 78 of 104 prisoners it committed to free when talks started. The last and final stage was originally scheduled for Saturday night, but Israelis are refusing to go forward with it if Abbas doesn't commit to extend talks.
Let's be honest. Israelis and Palestinians have difficult choices to make.
The U.S. approach at this point is pressure, pressure, and more pressure. Within the next month, and perhaps even within the next week, we will know if there is any chance Kerry will fulfill his dream.
And joining me right now from Nablus is Professor Abdel Sattar Al-Qassam, Professor of Political Science. Good evening. So please, Mr. Al-Qassam, please do tell me that the Palestinians are not going to give the excuse for the Israelis. Qasim. Please tell me that the Palestinians are not going to give the Israelis the chance to say that the Palestinians are not missing a chance to miss a chance again.
Yeah, well, the Palestinians are not going to recognize Israel as a Jewish state, at least for the present time. But generally, if you review history, the Arabs and the Palestinians do not recognize the demands of Israel immediately. It takes them a few years to recognize. They usually concede. And the Palestinians and the Arabs generally conceded over the years. From, for instance, the summit of Khartoum in 1967, when they said no recognition, they didn't want to recognize Israel. And so now they recognize Israel. And all of what they talk about is about the settlements. So they diminished or brought the Palestinian cause, the whole Palestinian cause, into the issue of settlements. Now some Arab states are recognizing Israel. The Palestinians are recognizing Israel. They are normalizing relations with Israel. And even the Palestinians and some Arab states are coordinating with Israel on security basis. So generally, the Palestinians and the Arabs do not concede immediately. It takes them a few years. Now, at the present time, the Palestinians are not going to recognize or to accept the demands of the Israelis, particularly after the summit that ended today. In the summit, Mahmoud Abbas committed himself not to recognize or to accept the Israeli demand, and also the Arab leaders said so. So it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some pressure.
Mr. Qassem, you know, these
negotiations in general.
Mr. Qassem,
Yes.
we know these things we already heard from the Palestinians, but I'm really trying to understand how come you can try to reach an agreement with Israel if you are inside the Palestinian society are so divided with Hamas and Fatah, and you cannot even reach an agreement between you two.
Yeah, we cannot reach an agreement with Israel with the division we are experiencing now. That's true. And even Israel wouldn't accept any kind of agreement with this kind of division. Why? Because the Israelis want to have an agreement with the Palestinians, including Gaza and the West Bank. But if they agree with the West Bank on certain arrangements, this means that the whole thing did not end, because there is Gaza. And Gaza is well armed, and they are ready to fight. They are facing the Israelis. So Israel and the United States, I believe, are interested in having a total agreement with the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank.
Mr. Qassem,
the division is an obstacle toward that.
Put Israel aside in this case. Put Israel aside in the case of the division of the Palestinian society. The Palestinian society cannot reach an agreement between two major parties in the Palestinian Authority, between Fatah and Hamas. Because if you cannot accept yourselves inside the Palestinian society, you probably won't accept Israel. So how you start accept yourself?
Well, we are divided because of Israel anyhow. There are some Palestinians who accept Israel and are coordinating with the Israelis, and there are Palestinians who are refusing to recognize Israel. And that's why we are divided. There isn't a consensus within the Palestinian society on all the issues of Oslo Accords. The consensus is not there. There are so many Palestinians who reject the Oslo Accords and the other accords that follow. So the problem is Israel. And our differences are because of the Israelis, not because we hate each other, because we have different programs. That's the matter. And Israel knows that. It knows that not all the Palestinians agree with the Oslo Accords or all do not agree with the arrangements that have been made with the Palestinian Authority.
You cannot.
So that is a problem. Yes.
Mr. Qassem, yes, you cannot blame a girl for trying. Thank you very much for this. And we're moving on. United States President Obama is continuing his European tour and is missing an opportunity to highlight Putin's threat to the entire EU. During the visit of Obama is also set to discuss the deployment of additional military forces to Eastern Europe. I-24 News correspondent Shahal Peled on his latest speech in Brussels.
On his first ever visit to European Union headquarters in Belgium, President Barack Obama once again seized the opportunity to express the US-EU opposition to the Russian takeover of Crimea.
We're united in our support for Ukraine and for the need to provide economic assistance to help stabilize its economy. We're united in our commitment to Europe's security. We're united in our determination to isolate Russia and impose costs for Russia's actions.
Viewed as the most important trip to Europe by an American president in years because of the crisis over Crimea, the visit to Brussels takes place after Obama's participation in the Nuclear Security Summit in the Netherlands. Much like in The Hague, Obama's talks with the presidents of the EU Council and Commission were dominated by the Ukraine conflict, emphasizing how Russia now faces the most significant sanctions since the Cold War.
Russia stands alone. Russia stood alone when trying to defend its actions at the UN Security Council. The 28 members of the European Union are united. The 28 members of NATO are united. Every member of the G7 has imposed sanctions on Russia, as we announced on Monday. And the G7 will meet here in Brussels in June without Russia.
According to Russia's military chief of staff, the Russian flag is now flying high over all the military facilities in Crimea as the Kremlin continues to call the Western steps counterproductive. Washington's commitment to stand by Europe's security guarantees is essential, especially to post-Soviet states, which have joined the alliance and continue to worry from a Russian invasion.
And joining me right now live from Crimea's Middle East Bureau Chief for Russia Today, Paula Slier. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Paula, what is the reaction within Russia to the NATO summit?
Well, basically, the Russians are considering any kinds of threats that are emanating from the West as pressure that is really unfounded. They're not taking it very seriously at all. You have the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, saying, for example, earlier in the week, there was an exclusion of Russia from all formal talks of the G8. You have Lavrov saying, well, those kind of discussions can happen at other forums. You have the United Nations, you have the Mid-East Quartet, you have the P5+1. So on a governmental level, they're not particularly worried. You've also had some kind of jokes coming from Russian ministers saying that they too want to be on the list of people whose sanctions are being imposed against. We had a statement earlier today, however, from the Russian government saying that they consider these threats of future pressure a cause for concern in the sense that it is harmful to both sides, with Moscow saying that it actually wants to continue these contacts on all levels, including top levels, and that the West should really reconsider the position that they're taking on this.
So, Paula, Barack Obama said yesterday that the annexation of Crimea is not a done deal. What is the reaction in Crimea when they actually chose to be part of Russia?
Well, certainly for people here, it is a done deal. Let me remind you that more than 97% of Crimeans voted to be part of Russia. And it was an election that did have foreign observers. All the foreign observers said that the process had been above board. You have Russia that is already implementing on the ground here the next moves. I mean, while I'm talking to you, the Russian ruble is being introduced as the new currency. You have the various Russian businesses that have started opening up in Crimea. It's happening, and it's happening very, very quickly here on the ground. So the West can say what it wants, but the reality here for people who are majority Russian speaking with their background and their networks based in Russia, for them it's irrelevant what the West and what the American president actually says.
Yes, Paula Slier from Crimea, thank you very much for this. Earlier today, a Turkish court decided to lift the government-imposed ban on Twitter. The social network was blocked after it hosted information allegedly incriminating members of government in corruption. I-24 News correspondent Oni Benbassat explains.
Twitter in Turkey is back in business. An Ankara court on Wednesday decided to suspend the government's ban on the social network, putting an end to 6 days of Twitter blackout.
Bu tweet'i biz kapatacağız.
The ban was led by the country's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan after phone recordings allegedly implicating him and other officials in corruption surfaced daily on the social platform.
They tell lies after lies, they disseminate smears, and they are using Twitter for this purpose.
The controversial move sparked waves of condemnation by the international community, but the toughest criticism came from within Turkey itself, deepening the rift between Erdogan and President Abdullah Gül, a frequent user of social media who deemed the ban unacceptable. This isn't the first time the Turkish government has banned social networks, and the issue has been a source of public demonstrations against the administration. Many in the country believe that this latest ban, like those before it, is not because of an anti-slandering campaign against Erdogan, but rather as an attempt to prevent the country's youth from communicating and organizing demonstrations against the government. But with many of the country's 10 million Twitter users bypassing the internet prohibition, it seems bans like this are ineffective in controlling public opinion and perhaps only add fuel to the fire.
And in a widely expected move, Egypt's army chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi today called a meeting of the military's top council to submit his resignation ahead of a likely presidential bid. Sisi's aides have said that the field marshal who toppled Islamist President Mohammed Morsi in July will contest elections due before the summer. Egypt is already filled with posters and signs supporting his candidacy. And at the end of a two-day summit of the Arab League in Kuwait, Arab leaders called for a political solution to Syria's war, but also condemned the, quote, massacres and killings committed by the Syrian regime. The opposition and the Syrian regime met at the Geneva II peace talks last month, but negotiations ended with no resolution and no plan for another round. And now let's look inside Israel. And now joining me to look inside Israel is I-24 News correspondent Eli Yochamer. Good evening, Eli.
Good evening, Lucy.
Before we are talking today, the race to the presidency, President Shimon Peres will end his term by July 27th, and at the maximum exactly 1 month earlier, the replacement will be chosen. But before we discuss that, let's see your report.
With Israel's presidential election just around the corner, the race to become the nation's 10th head of state is in full swing. In Israel, the president is chosen by the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, for a 7-year term. And while the candidates traditionally come from the Knesset's own ranks, several non-political figures may also compete for the position. And the current list of potential candidates is former parliament speaker and parliament member since 1988, Reuven Rivlin, began campaigning for the role at an early stage, seeking the support of his political allies within the ruling Likud party to help make him the right's presidential candidate. From the Labour Party, longtime parliament member and former defense minister Benjamin Ben-Eliezer has also already announced his candidature and was the first contender to gain the necessary 10 signatures from the lawmakers in order to run for the position. He is considered a front-runner for the spot. Nobel laureate in chemistry Professor Dan Shechtman, retired justice of the Israeli High Court Dalia Dorner, tourism minister Uzi Landau, and veteran politician Meir Shitrit formally announced their candidacy as well, but have yet to win the 10 essential parliamentary vote support, and their chances are thought to be slim. Another very strong potential nominee is longtime politician Silvan Shalom, the National Infrastructure, Energy and Water Minister, Regional Corporation Minister, and former Finance and Foreign Affairs Minister, but the official announcement has yet to come. Shalom's road to presidency stumbled on a house of card-like speculation. An accusation of sexual harassment alleged to have occurred 15 years ago rose out of nowhere with suspicious timing. It is still unclear if it will affect his candidacy. No matter who will eventually be chosen out of the still growing list of candidates, one thing is certain: the new president will have to fill a big pair of shoes.
Is there a single person in Israel who is not running to the presidency of Israel?
Yes, it's a long list of candidates, but the big story of this race is not the chosen replacement, but the farewell to the outgoing president. Shimon Peres is without a doubt one of the most popular and loved presidents in the history of Israel, and not only inside the country, he's really a world-renowned figure. Lucy, when you say Israeli politics, you say Shimon Peres. He is a part of what we call the old guard. He's been here forever and did many super key figures in Israel, and in a very uncommon way to Israelis. Unanimously, everyone thinks he did a fantastic job during his 7-year term. So it's for sure will be not easy on the air, but let's see what Israelis think about who should replace Shimon Peres.
Let's see.
Meir Shitrit, an honest, reliable man. I think he should be the next president of Israel.
I believe David Levy. There's no one more deserving than him.
I think Ruby Rivlin is suitable because he is a true Israeli who speaks up and says what's on his mind. Fuad Ben-Eliezer, he's a serious man, a good politician, with no scandals and all these kind of things. He is a decent man.
I think Meir Shitrit. Ideally, I would recommend Peres, but it's impossible.
Eli, do you think that I will be a good president?
I have no doubt, Lucy. But maybe we'll wait for the next round because there are a lot of candidates already.
Yeah, you know what? I will leave it for the next round. I still have a lot of job here.
You have my vote.
Okay. Eliel Geberg, thank you very much for this. We're going out for a small break, a 2-minute break, and then we will be back for the daily question. Don't go anywhere with your answers. We will be back. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in Jordan for what could be a last chance to revive the peace process, while the Arab League in Kuwait declares a total rejection of the Jewish state. In his first visit to EU headquarters, American President Barack Obama lashes out against Russian aggression in Crimea. A Turkish court reverses the government-imposed ban on Twitter in the country 6 days after Prime Minister Erdogan ordered to wipe out the social network. Censorship and control of the internet are in focus around the world, from Turkey attempting to ban Twitter to a conference in Singapore on taking the internet out of United States supervision. On the Daily Question, we ask you, should government control the internet? Joining me right now is I-24 News editor Nurit Zanger.
Good evening.
So the obvious answer is not so obvious.
It's not, especially because there are so many events going on just this week that are relevant. There's NSA proposed reform. There's this conference going on in Singapore that you just mentioned on changing the control of the internet, taking it out of U.S. hands. There's Twitter and the Turkey ban. So people responded to all of these things actually today. Everybody interpreted it in a different way. Let's start with the poll, as always.
Of course, as always.
We had 36% saying yes, the government should control the internet, 60% saying no.
No.
Somewhat predictably more on the no side, but we had good arguments on both sides, so let's take a look. Let's start with the no's, though. They're the most aggressive, I would say. B. Jackson said, governments can try controlling the internet all they want. The truth is they can't. This was never more true than this week with Twitter, I think.
You know, just am I naive? But, you know, it's like the government already controls
well, according to our users, there's
NSA
a lot of debate.
And Barack Obama, they proved that they are controlling our lives. So,
well, the U.S. actually does control the technical side. That's part of the things being discussed. But there are people that we'll see who argue that Google and Facebook are the ones that control everything. So everyone's pretty divided on it.
Yeah.
Let's go to Hisham in Cairo, who said, over the past years, internet became a right and not a privilege. That's an important point, I think. Governments can't deny access to the web, just like they shouldn't deny access to roads and knowledge. So he has a point, and he's writing also from Cairo, which I think speaks. Speaks for
itself when it says.
We saw the Arab Spring, the galvanization on Facebook and Twitter, and the attempts to censor, which, in the end, don't work so well.
No.
So let's go to James in Virginia, who says, "Ever heard of the NSA?" I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah, we just said that.
NSA, and a crazy amount of criticism on the surveillance policies, and reform may be coming.
You know, I'm trying to think, it's just like with Facebook, with the New Deal of Facebook, and Facebook's trying to buy some drones and everything, basically.
All the companies.
And I wonder if to put the control in our hands, if it's not dangerous.
Exactly. There are problems with it on both sides. If it's public companies, if it's private, if it's Facebook and Google, or if it's the U.S. government, or who knows, another government. We all know Saudi Arabia, for example, isn't exactly good at the internet freedom part. So we'll take a look.
Let's see what our analyst has to say about that. Good evening to Dr. Tal Pavel, founder and CEO MiddleEastNet.com. Good evening. So, Tal, how is the internet actually regulated?
Well, basically you can control it technology, and we saw it last week in Turkey when Erdogan said that they will close, they will ban the full access to Twitter in Turkey, and they block it by what is called a DNS filtering. So a country and government have the ability to control by technological means the free access of the citizens to the net. Of course, they have the jurisdiction and laws by their sides, and they can have the ability to create laws that will prevent the users from free access to the net.
Tal, how dangerous would it be if it won't be in the government's hands?
Well, it's a very complicated question because we can see that the internet can be a bless and a curse for all sides. The free access to the media and to create news, it can be a bless and it can be a horrible thing. We saw it last week in the case of the Malaysian airplane. We saw all kinds of camps in Facebook.
Yes.
It was created by end users, by private users.
Perhaps it will be. Dr. Tal Pavel, thank you very much for this because we have more comments and we want to hear more.
We have a lot
from
more
our
comments. I think we
viewers.
won't get to a fraction of them because people had a lot to say on this. But let's go to the yeses, to the people who make a decent argument why government should control the internet. Mary Robinson in Manchester says, I prefer government controls it and not Google or Facebook. Someone needs to control them. Oh. Just this week, we had Obama meeting 6 tech giants.
And she's answering on Facebook.
She is.
Oh, yes.
And I don't want to comment about Dear Marie, but she perhaps also has her photo and personal information on there. The privacy issue is a whole other planet, which I'm sure we'll get to here.
Yes.
But just this week, Obama met with 6 tech giants to reassure them that the U.S. will scale back surveillance and data collection. So it's a very interesting balance we see. Let's jump to some other arguments that came from a different angle. Emily in Santa Barbara, California said there should be measures of protection against groups who use freedom of expression in order to undermine freedom itself. She's talking about child pornography, bullying, and so on. Iris in Jerusalem also echoed that government regulation can at least curb dangerous ideas becoming the dominant feature. So there's this line, who can police it? Because if we're talking about, say, neo-Nazi movements on the web and hate speech and so on. And let's just end with Ben Waxman, who says, I'm being monitored by the CIA, so I can't.
I think that this is the best comment that we had from Ben. When you look at it, I prefer that there will be like a big brother monitoring everything.
Another one of our viewers said, who guards the guards? So.
And
whoever's guarding it.
It's already out there. So,
too late.
Yeah, too late. Nuli Zager, thank you very much. We'll be here again tomorrow. And we're going out for a small break, 2 minutes break, and then we will be back for our second part of News Today. Don't go anywhere. 2 minutes. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in Jordan for what could be a last chance to revive the peace process, while the Arab League in Kuwait declares a total rejection of the Jewish state. In his first visit to EU headquarters, American President Barack Obama lashes out against Russian aggression in Crimea. A Turkish court reverses the government-imposed ban on Twitter in the country 6 days after Prime Minister Erdogan ordered to wipe out the social network. Welcome back. 35 years ago, Israel and Egypt put an end to 30-year conflict with a historic peace treaty. Today, after the Arab Spring, many questioned this achievement. I-24 News reporter Uli Shapira goes back to the significant moments of March 1979.
The world stood still when they reached out and shook hands, and no one believed that this alliance would last. 35 years ago, in Washington, D.C., Egypt and Israel made history as they signed the peace treaty, the first one of its kind, between an Arab nation and the Jewish state.
We pray God together, that these dreams will come true.
Israel and Egypt were bitter enemies for more than 30 years. Two of the strongest countries in the Middle East found themselves in a continuing conflict that started after Israel declared independence in 1947 and came to its height in 1973 during the Yom Kippur War, when thousands of people lost their lives. The negotiations started in 1975, but kicked off in 1977 after Menachem Begin became Israel's prime minister. In November of that year, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat made a historic visit to Jerusalem, showing how serious he was about closing a deal with Israel.
May peace be for us all in Arab lands, Israel, and everywhere in the world.
وفي كل مكان من أرض هذا العالم الكبير.
On March 26, 1979, Israel and Egypt signed the treaty, agreeing on full diplomatic relations. Israel agreed to withdraw from the Sinai Peninsula, but kept the Gaza Strip with an obligation to seek a future agreement that would provide Palestinian autonomy. Many in the Arab world, as well as in Israel, saw the treaty as a betrayal. Sadat himself was assassinated 2 years after the signing by a Muslim extremist who opposed the peace agreement during a military parade in Cairo. The assassination of Sadat did not affect the ties between the countries. The rise of the Muslim Brotherhood in 2011 intimidated many in Israel, but despite the obstacles, Menachem Begin's words, "No more war, no more bloodshed," can still inspire millions of Egyptians and Israelis who hope for a better tomorrow.
And we will have a wider look at the subject, of course, in our daily debate. And we continue the search for bodies and is widening in Washington state after a weekend mudslide left an estimated 24 people dead amidst ruined houses and a flooded countryside. I-24 News correspondent Danny Swibel has the story.
The official death toll is 16. But the local fire chief says there are likely 24 fatalities so far, as rescue workers believe they had located 8 more bodies. And as many as 176 people remain listed as missing 3 days after a rain-soaked hillside collapsed across a state road where it destroyed dozens of homes. A newly released video shows the helicopter rescue of a 4-year-old boy just hours after the landslide occurred on Saturday. Crews continue to search for survivors under rainy skies amid fading hopes that anyone could still be alive under the massive pile of debris. Though authorities have said the chances were low of finding any more survivors, Fire Chief Travis Hutz said some 50 more searchers had been brought in to sift through the disaster zone in hopes of a miracle.
I consider it still a rescue operation. Absolutely. It's a rescue and a recovery operation. We haven't lost hope that, there's a possibility that that we could find somebody alive in some pocket area. As the days go on and we haven't seen any loss of life, we are coming to the realization that, that may not be a possibility, but we are going full steam ahead.
Officials said they were hoping the numbers would decline, as some of those listed as missing may have been double counted or were slow to alert family and officials of their whereabouts. But with the death toll continuing to rise, the disaster already ranks as one of the deadliest landslides in recent U.S. history.
And let's look now a little bit about the money. And to economy, with me is the host of I-24 News Economy Magazine, Benjamin Chong Alfares. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Good to have you back.
Thank you.
So, another Facebook deal?
Another Facebook deal. It's unbelievable. 2014, and they're already over $20 billion in acquisitions. It's crazy.
Really? Do you think?
Well, the really crazy thing here is that we're talking about a very tiny company. We're talking about a technology that hasn't really proven itself yet, virtual reality. It's the promise of the future. It's science fiction, essentially, to some extent. But, with a company like Oculus being acquired by Facebook, the likes of Facebook, there's tremendous potential in this. Of course, the question remains, what does it mean for Oculus and what does it mean for Facebook? For Oculus, essentially, they get a big juggernaut company, a company that has tremendous amounts of money, that's ruled by a guy named Mark Zuckerberg, who believes in virtual reality, apparently, who's willing to spend a lot of money on them. For Facebook, it's a different question. It's like, well, why did he do this?
Why did he do this? If we try to compare it to his last purchase, WhatsApp.
Right. So WhatsApp had 450 million subscribers. these guys don't even have a finished product. We're talking about a company that was established by a teenager, a barefoot teenager in a garage
it's like
somewhere,
he's buying
2
air
years
in a
ago.
bottle. It's basically like that.
Right. It's a crazy story. You know, the thing that's actually crazier about all of this is that the company started from Kickstarter. Now, Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform. People essentially that believe in initiatives say, oh, you know, I'm going to put in my $300. You know, good believing, like, you know, let me help out this guy. You know, what happens in the end? They get bought for $2 billion, and these people get nothing.
You know,
Zilch, zero.
You know, I think that this idea of air in a bottle can, like, I really think that Mark Zuckerberg will eventually buy this from me. Because is he going to actually gain money from it?
So that's the thing. He actually does believe, or Facebook in general believes, and they're not the only ones. They weren't the only ones interested in buying Oculus. But virtual reality is something that is going to happen. It's going to change the industry 5 to 10 years from now. You know, it's not something that's going to change anything in terms of, you know, the bottom line for Facebook, but it is supposed to change down the line, certainly in the gaming sector, how we experience the world. Now, you know, if you want to put on those big goggles, you know, and try to see the world differently, then hey.
You know, it's not enough that we just communicate with people through Facebook. Now, it basically this trying to control our lives in Facebook is going to be virtual.
So it's really interesting because he's taking away a little bit, like he's essentially expanding. This is different from WhatsApp and Instagram. WhatsApp and Instagram was an acquisition where essentially he says, you know what, I'm going to protect myself because these are great companies and they're in my sort of ballpark.
So you can compare it to the drone.
Amazon's drones?
Yes.
No, it's still different. It's still different. I mean, it's science fiction also, right? But you know, this is yeah, I guess maybe it's to some extent on the same line. They're basically people that think big and they think ahead, and who knows? Maybe this will actually lead to a game-changing industry for them.
You know, I really wonder what is his next move.
Who knows? Time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell, definitely. And that's what happens maybe when you have too much money.
Yeah, well, you know, he has $11 billion.
We don't have these problems.
He has an $11 billion bank account that he controls and unlimited amount of stock.
Yeah, it's a good thing that we don't have these problems. But I mean, thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
2 days after Malaysia's official announcement that flight MH370 crashed with no survivors, the message is now sinking in with the rest of the world. The new satellite images show possible debris that could explain what happened to the plane. Here's I-24 News correspondent Ronnie Benbassat with the details.
I want to thank all of the nations involved in search activities, recovery activities, China, the United States, Japan, Korea, and New Zealand.
19 days into the mysterious disappearance of flight MH370, it seems the atmosphere has changed, and all hope of ever finding living survivors is now lost. The Australian Parliament held a moment of silence to remember the passengers, and newspapers in Malaysia are now officially mourning the victims. But in the southern Indian Ocean, the search operation continues, and every new lead raises hope of at least finding out what happened. The Malaysian government announced on Wednesday that new satellite images show 122 objects floating in the search area.
Some objects were a meter in length, others were as much as 23 meters in length. Some of the objects appeared to be bright, possibly indicating solid material.
Although this latest clue is considered the most credible one so far, there is still no guarantee that it's debris from the plane. And almost 3 weeks after the aircraft vanished, time is also running out on finding its black box, which has a limited battery life of around 30 days. With no answers to fill the void, the focus is now turning to Malaysia's ability to manage the crisis. Hundreds of furious family members, mostly from China, have been criticizing both the government and the airline for lack of transparency.
We look forward to them giving us the actual truth, but I know they definitely won't just yet, so we just need them to give us a detailed explanation why they came to be this irresponsible.
The search for answers is not over yet. Airplanes and ships continue to look for the floating objects, at this point hoping for a miracle.
And North Korea fired 2 medium-range ballistic missiles today, a day after United States President Barack Obama hosted a landmark Japan-South Korea summit aimed at uniting the three nations against Pyongyang's nuclear threat. Washington called the tests troubling and provocative, with the United States Department threatening appropriate measures for the violating of UN Security Council resolutions prohibiting North Korea from conducting ballistic missile tests. Slimane Abolghaith, the most senior advisor of Osama bin Laden, to be tried in a civilian United States court since the September 11 attacks, was convicted today of conspiring to kill Americans and providing material support to terrorists. The jury returned its verdict on the second day of deliberations in United States District Court in Manhattan. And joining me right now from New York is investigative journalist Martin Hamel. Good evening.
Good evening.
So that was very fast, I have to say.
Yes, it was very fast, but it was also quite obvious. This was the highest-ranking al-Qaeda member ever to be tried in a U.S. court. The evidence was right there on camera because he delivered incitement against the U.S. Concerning the World Trade Tower attacks. The evidence was very solid, and the outcome was quite obvious.
So the outcome was quite obvious. What is the next step that we should expect?
The next step will probably be sentencing. For conspiring to kill Americans, you can get a life sentence. For aiding terrorists, you can get 15 years. So the chances are he'll be put away for life. And you also have to look at the symbolism where this trial took place. It took place just several blocks from the actual attacks on the Twin Towers. And with that juxtaposition, I think the juxtaposition in sentencing will be quite large too, and I think he would expect a life sentence.
Is it some comfort to the families?
Well, the term given by the prosecution was that maybe it will provide a little bit of comfort, a touch of closure. After all, apart from killing bin Laden and capturing the mastermind, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, no one has actually been put on trial. And this is the first real trial for that crime. So it does provide, as the prosecution said, a few grains of comfort.
Through grains of comfort. Martin Hamel, thank you very much for this. And now let's go out for a small run. And with me now, I'm not going for a run. With me now is the host of I-24 News Sports Weekend Magazine, Mirav Savir. Good evening.
Good evening.
I thought to go out for a run, but
I didn't do any today. It's okay.
You did it. Of course. So, again, we will speak about Bayern München.
Yes, we're again speaking about Bayern Munich, which I'm sure Jonathan talked his head off to you about yesterday, but it's well worth it. This team went on a tear this season, and last night they beat Hertha Berlin 3-1. To win the Bundesliga title in record-breaking time. There are 7 matches left, which means a month and a half, and that trophy was hoisted in the air last night.
So just what I said yesterday to Jonathan is actually correct. They are basically going to play for fun.
Yeah, they don't have to be that for fun. No, maybe not for fun. Maybe to continue their records, because some of the numbers they've achieved this season are unbelievable. I'm going to read some of them off. They played 27 games this year. They've won 25 of them. 2 of them were draws. They have not lost this season. 19 games in a row, 10 of them away. It's unbelievable. They haven't lost in 52 Bundesliga games. Not all of them were wins. Some of them were ties, but that stretches back to October 2012.
Wow.
That is a year and a half. Their new manager, Pep Guardiola, who's been here since last summer, hasn't lost a Bundesliga game.
You know, I don't want to start saying what I think about Pep Guardiola. But he's a good-looking guy.
They're already 1/3 of the way to accomplishing what they did last year, which is the treble, and it doesn't look like anything's stopping them yet. So they may be one of the first teams to do that, to repeat the treble.
I believe that the taste of winning is very sweet.
And they definitely want to taste that again.
Yes, definitely. So let's move to Beckham.
David Beckham is continuing on his way to his MLS ownership. So we already announced that he was going to own a team in Miami. Now, the next thing he has to do is get a stadium. So he made his way to Tallahassee, Florida, the capital of the state, to basically fundraise money from lawmakers. Now, this isn't anything new. Lawmakers do give money. They get lobbied for money for other teams. And David Beckham says, well, if other teams are doing this, I want the money too. Because you look at some of the video of the stadium he wants to build. It is absolutely incredible. They want it to be in the port of Miami, which is already a busy place. It's where all the different cruise ships dock. This entire operation cost $200 million.
$200 million?
$200 million for a stadium.
Ooh, so what are the chances that he's going to succeed?
Well, they're eyeing to start playing there in 2016, so for them it's already a done deal, regardless of whether they lobbied the money. But this is a stadium that's going to seat 25 to 40,000 people. Depends on whether or not they can make a deal with the University of Miami. They're also going to have shops and offices there, so you can go to a soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, to a match and shop right after.
So just you can take your
it's a
actually
complete
partner
day
with
out.
you. Yeah, you can take your date with you, so it's okay. You will see football. She will do some shopping.
Or maybe the other way around.
You have 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Something
Yes.
to look forward to this weekend. NCAA tournament in the United States is continuing. Sweet 16 in the Elite Eight. And after we watch what we saw from the first weekend, the best starting weekend in the tournament. Absolutely something to look forward to over the weekend from the United States.
You know, if they want to know how to play basketball, they should come to Israel and see how we play football. Yes. Mirav Safir, thank you very much.
Thank you for
this.
having me.
And we're moving this week. The Tel Aviv Museum hosts EPOS, an international film festival dedicated to art, artists, and video art. Here's a look at some of the films the festival has to offer.
For its 5th year, the EPOS Festival will screen 50 films from around the world and also hold workshops, masterclasses, lectures, and meetings with artists from all over the world. But the main focus of the festival are the films themselves. EPOS presents documentaries about the visual arts, music, literature, theater, architecture, and dance, along with video art and experimental films that use the medium in new and unique ways. The festival opened with a screening of The Dove Flyer, filmmaker Nissim Dayan's adaptation of Eli Amir's novel about the Jewish community in Iraq in the years after the establishment of the State of Israel. The film, Sophie Kal Untitled, is a profile of the French writer, photographer, and installation artist.
I don't want to sit down in front of a camera and talk about my life.
Kal herself took a very active part in the making of the film, directed by Victoria Clay Mendoza, and it's infused with her character and spirit. Viva Cuba Libre, Rap is War, is a film shot secretly with hidden cameras, about 2 young men in Cuba imprisoned for listening to forbidden rap songs. The film documents the brewing tensions within the country and its underground music scene by intercutting the stories of the young men and their favorite band. Aside from films about artists in the artistic process, the Film as Art category presents experimental movies and video art. Death of a Man in the Balkans is a Serbian black comedy which presents a story that unfolds in front of a static camera. The film All This Can Happen by Siobhan Davis and David Hinton is a compilation of images and sounds from the early days of cinema, coupled with narration based on Swiss author Robert Walzer's story, The Walk. The festival will also screen the BBC's documentary about David Bowie's 1974 performance, Cracked Actor, the Rolling Stones documentary Crossfire Hurricane, outtakes from Chagai Levy's docudrama series The Cursed, and When Bjork Made Edinburgh, a film that documents meetings between the Icelandic musician and the British filmmaker. Visitors to this unique festival can explore the way film documents art and the possibilities of cinema.
You just heard Avri Rosentzvi, and in 3 seconds you're going to see him. And joining me now from I24 News Culture Magazine is Avri Rosentzvi. Good evening. So, to prepare the popcorn, because there is a new movie streaming service.
Yeah, well, it's actually the return of a streaming service, Popcorn Time. It's it's a software. It's a piece of software developed by Argentinians that's made a lot of commotion online in the last few weeks. It started in the beginning of March. A simple software that allows users to just start watching films. The thing is, it's illegal. The movies,
illegal?
yeah, it's
Okay.
pirated movies that you would have to download or
So
use.
how come we're speaking about it here?
Well,
We're still a young channel.
we're speaking about it because it's talking about a thing that is that's very important to our times, and that's the way that studios are dealing with the whole move to digital. Because the reason that this thing is so popular is because all over the world people have a lot of criticism about the way that the major studios are dealing with online content distribution. Different prices in different countries, different dates in different countries. And you know what? Even though this actually, okay, we have to state, first of all, the software is not illegal.
The software is not illegal.
Because it can stream anything. It can stream any kind of video. But most of its uses, most of the people who use it for illegal reasons. But most of the media around the world came strongly in support of this software. Legitimate media, everyone, because there is such anger about the way studios deal with content. I mean, the people said that in Argentina, you have to pay. They have to pay for. There's something about Mary, a movie that's like almost 18 years old, 20 years old. They have to pay like it's a new movie, because of problems with different categories around the world.
Either way, it's not legal. What you're telling me.
I'm not urging people to go download the software.
No, we're not.
Not at all. I'm just saying that that it sort of brings to the front a big problem,
a big issue. But is there any streaming service that is legal?
There are a lot of streaming services that are legal
that we have to pay for.
That you have to pay for, but the problem is they're not available to everyone around the world at the same time, and studios are reluctant to sort of confront the problem of the content being available. These people stopped the program. You know, they took it offline because they said, we don't want to deal with the fact that of legality, illegality. We wanted to bring this problem. Okay,
okay. So I'm not going to. No, I'm. Thank you very much. I'm not going to recommend to anyone to see anything in streaming. Only legal streaming, like us on the web. Don't go anywhere. 4 minutes break, and I'll be back for the news today.